So he was 4 years old, just 4. His first seizure happened just before he was 4. And like I said, we were in and out of hospitals with different neurologists. And, several of them had no idea what was going on. And they would just try medicine, send him home. And then he would still have seizures. So we went back to the pediatrician and we went back to the hospital. And so like I said before, after about 2 to 3 weeks of continuous monitoring with the EEG attached to his head, they would just try different medicines and see what worked, what didn't work. And through that, and watching him, because he was on camera the whole time in the hospital, they came up with the diagnosis. So pretty quickly. His first seizure was end of August 2009, and he got the diagnosis, I'd say, end of September 2009. So within a month or so. And then that's when the doctor recommended. Well, he didn't really recommend Atkins. He recommended trying a lot of medicines. And Brandon was on 3 anti-seizure medicines. And he was just not himself at all. It was terrible. The medication wasn't completely making him seizure-free. So it wasn't as if we put him on something and there were side effects, but he wasn't having seizures. He was still having seizures throughout the day, all day, every day, all kinds of seizures. This particular syndrome, you have every kind of seizure. So the absence, something called myoclonic, where your head just like collapses down, or he would just fall straight down, like they compared to like a puppet being dropped. So every kind of seizure. So the medicines really weren't working, and he was on 3 and he couldn't swallow pills. So I think Brandon remembers this, that we had to chase him around the house. He had this little toy car he'd ride around and to get away from us. And we had to hide the medicine in yogurt and food. And it was just, 3 times a day. It was torture. And I have a daughter also. So at the time she was 6 years old, and, she didn't know what was going on. And we read that we read that the Atkins diet first could help. And I was like, that's crazy eating. How's that going to help? But that was really the reason we tried it, because the medicines weren't working. His side effects were, he was tired all the time. He was like shaky. He wasn't concentrating well. We used to play a lot of board games. He couldn't even focus on playing games anymore. I had to pull him out of nursery school because he couldn't stay awake. He was having seizures there, and yeah, it's just terrible, really bad. You name the side effect, he had it. And then he was angry. Do you remember that at all? My daughter, he had little Matchbox cars he played with, but the medicine I think Keppra in particular, made him really angry. And he would just start throwing his little Matchbox cars. And my daughter was very small, even though she was almost 3 years older. And she was like, ah. So we said, Brandon, go to the mean room, or I don't know. We came up with something, and she went and hid and closed herself into the playroom, and he had to go up to his room. But it was a little scary. So yeah, for all those reasons, we tried the diet.
So I was one of the very lucky cases. And within a week of doing the keto diet, I was pretty much done with seizures completely. There was 1 or 2 relapse seizures within a short period, and then that was it. So I've been completely seizure-free for over 10 years now.
Actually, the relapse was 100% because we gave him actually Powerade Zero. It's like Gatorade. Because that was allowed, but 1 bottle was allowed on the ketogenic diet, which is much more strict than Atkins. So 1 bottle a day was allowed of that. And I remember very clearly it was Memorial Day weekend, and it was very hot here, and we were out shopping for shoes and Home Depot and various other places, and they sold it at the store. And Brandon wanted it, and I'm like, okay, have a bottle, have another bottle. I think he might have had 3 bottles, and then he fell down, had a full-blown, tonic-clonic seizure right there in the shoe store. And that was very scary because we had gone at that point about 2 to 3 weeks seizure-free, and I was feeling like, walking on eggshells. But I'd say that was the drink caused it, because that was the only thing that changed. So, never again. He knows, never touch it. Even now, he probably could have it, but I'm like, don't touch it. Don't ever have Gatorade or any of those energy drinks. So it took maybe 6 months for each medicine to wean off while he was on the diet. And then that's when I was really nervous, stopping the medicine and then stopping the medicine. And then finally she said, all right, we're going to start dropping the ratio. And then once you get to like 1-to-1 ratio, it's kind of the Atkins diet, which was so much easier. I would tell somebody who can do the Atkins diet, you try keto for a month and then switch to Atkins, and you'll be like, this is easy peasy, because the ketogenic diet is so much more difficult. And Atkins, after doing keto, is like, I could do this for the rest of my life if I had to, really. So the contrast between 4-to-1 keto and Atkins is really big. So we were 4-to-1 keto, and then he slowly weaned down to 1-to-1, which was pretty much the Atkins diet. And we stayed there for a good long time.
It was very surprising when it worked so quickly. At the time, there weren't many people at all that were doing the diet, so I don't think they really knew what was going to happen. So when it worked, it was kind of amazing, because I went from having seizures every day to the Atkins diet, where I was still having a lot of seizures, just not as many, to suddenly being seizure-free and having what would look like a normal seizure-free life, which is what happened, and it's what I still live now. So, and to this day, I'm still one of the few cases where people are completely seizure-free, and nothing from that time really affects me anymore in my day-to-day life, which is really kind of amazing.
Atkins was really good, and I think if I had more help with it, it could have worked. But there was no real help. Like I said, the dietitians just said, here you go. And then once I actually started keto, I was like, this is so much better for me, because here I have a meal plan and it tells me exactly what he should eat, how much carbs, how much fat. And they were monitoring him. Whereas before, it was just like, good luck, you're on your own. And that's a lot of things I found on support groups that I was on from just different hospitals. Like they would say, oh, my kid would eat this and this. I'm like, oh my God, we can't eat that. So a lot of times they weren't having success. And I said, maybe you should just try, going even stricter. Like, don't deduct the fiber, or go get another opinion at this hospital where they do the really strict version, because, it works. So you can't argue with success, right? Like, he went in the hospital on a Monday, he fell down, had a seizure on the floor, and then by Friday, he stopped.